My name's Hein. I'm from Stellenbosch in the Western Cape. I'm 24 years old. Before I came here, I was studying at the University of Stellenbosch and at UCT. Got into logistics. It sucked, and I kind of just got pretty well pissed off and decided to come the anti-poaching way. Well, I wanted to join the military my whole life, and kind of ended up not going there, so rather decided coming here. Kind of felt like it's a good reason to come here, protecting animals, not just rhinos, and it's better than fighting wars for politicians. Training over the years have changed a lot. Even before my time here, training was very rudimentary. It had no schedule or anything. It was basically instructors, what they decided to do on that day. Probably involved a little bit of tracking, a lot of PT and fitness. Discipline was not really a big thing. And I mean, even weapons training was extremely rudimentary. If I'm correct, it would be a single action shotgun and 6 rounds and you're ready to go to the bush. But I mean, back in the day, it wasn't really for rhino poaching per se. It was for snare poaching of impala and warthog and other game. And the problem wasn't as big with incursions from poachers, and they weren't this well armed. So that was more than enough. Obviously, within the last like 4 years, when poaching of rhino really became a big problem, and the guys becoming better armed and more aggressive, we also had to change. And training has started to develop and progress a lot into where guys are being trained with semi-automatic rifles, full-on bush warfare tactics, and with a lot more discipline. I can even relate to my own training, which wasn't that long ago. Discipline back then was quite lax. It was quite relaxed, and I mean, nobody really was too worried about if you're not that disciplined. But as things are progressing and becoming more and more, how can you say, more freaking intense with the poaching side, so is our training becoming more intense. So guys need to be disciplined. They need to have more bush skills. They need to know how to survive in the bush. They need to know how to survive from predators and from dangerous herbivores and all of that stuff, and also from poachers. So we do have a much more rigorous training schedule than we would have even a year to 6 months ago already, and this is being modified and developed as it goes, as the problem increases, and learning from what's happening in the bush, taking it to training and training guys. And that's about it. At the moment, the battle against poaching with rhinos specifically in the western region, I would say, as with the rest of the country and Africa, is not going that well at all. Basically, it's a losing battle. What we do is we buy time. We buy time for the animals until politicians and I mean NGOs and stuff decide to speak to the right people and get them to change legislation, change other countries' perceptions of rhino horn and all of that stuff, to stop the illegal use of the product. Until that time, we're going to keep on losing, and if it's not done, we will lose. But I mean, even while just buying time for the animals, with the amount of equipment that you're out here with, it's not really very easy to buy time for these animals, because we run around with a few buckies and you have your weapon, and you have a lot of oaks that are dedicated to the job, very passionate to it. But if you have all these guys with passion, but you don't have the technology, as in night vision gear or drones or anything like that, the fight is basically lost. So what I'm trying to say is buying time for these animals until the political will comes down to save them is something that we really want to do, and it will happen, but without the right equipment we don't have enough time for these animals. At the moment we have our hands tied behind our backs with poachers. Obviously your first priority is to catch the person, but at the moment we can't really move off our reserves, go take them out of their houses without the support of our own police. And as the situation for police is at the moment, I mean, there's a very few that are really great guys and they really help us, but from the top doesn't seem like the support is there, nor the training for the police. We don't have any specialized units to fight wildlife crime, which makes it very difficult. So basically we have to use the police to go anywhere and catch these guys outside of our own reserve. But it just doesn't seem like the police has the training in wildlife crime to help us. Other than that, obviously South Africa, because of its history, has a very strict policy on shooting. So even in a self-defense situation where a guy is shooting at you, we'd have to think twice, 3 times, 4 times before shooting back, as we'd probably be the one sitting in jail and not the poacher. If I were to change anything in anti-poaching at the moment, first of all, your guys on the ground, you need to equip them properly, which is a hard thing because it's quite expensive equipping these people, and looking after rhinos, it's not as funded as many people would believe. It's still hard to get funds for equipment, and the rhinos are dying because we are outfunded by poachers and poaching syndicates. They have more money than us. They have the advantage all the time. We need to be proactive, and to do that it basically works on good intelligence. For instance, if you could get drones to do your grids, flying over your farms, night times, day times, whenever, and picking these guys up, we could go out and get them. If you could get helicopters or a helicopter, you could go out quickly and get these guys even from just a gunshot report. If you have your night vision gear, we could go out at night and patrol more confidently than just by using the moonlight, you know. All of these things, if you don't have this, you don't really have the confidence and the ability to go and fight poaching effectively. If you have this equipment, you can go out and really go and preemptively stop these people from killing rhino. Where anti-poaching is a lot like, I like to say, chasing ghosts and finding dead rhino. Because you find a spoor, this guy's already been out and they're gone. They're out of your reserve, you can't touch them. Which makes it quite hard. If we had the correct gear, we could fight these guys and we can find them before they even got to the rhino and pick them up and arrest them. What more needs to be done than actually having your guys on the ground and doing your anti-poaching work within your reserves is most definitely the education of your communities outside of these reserves. Because if you look at it, these people living in South Africa are quite poor, and if someone comes to you and your annual salary is like 30,000 rand, or I don't know, like you're extremely poor, you basically don't have a job, and they tell you, listen, you can make 20,000 rand out of this, out of going and hunting this animal in this reserve, it becomes a pretty attractive thing. And these people have the skill because they've been raising cattle, they know how to go around in the bush, they know their way around in the bush. All that's needed is to teach them how to use a high caliber rifle, and they will find the animal, kill it, chop off the horn and give it to the syndicates. So unless you educate these people on why poaching is wrong and you solve your socioeconomic problems and create jobs, these people will be an unending resource for these poaching syndicates to send in, basically as cannon fodder. because the main guys don't get caught. It's the guys that are poor that actually do this for the big money, which they haven't seen ever in their lives. And that's actually the big problem. Anti-poaching, a lot of guys come here and they think, this is romantic, this is where you can get girls, this is, you know, saving the rhino, and I'm going to be out there fighting a war like a freaking, I don't know, what kind of a merc. It's not. It's usually down in the dirt, gritty, shit job 80% of the times, and it's frustrating. It's a frustrating fucking job, but it needs to be done, and we need some passionate people to do it. So basically my message is, don't you come here with your shitty little boy attitude. Come here if you have passion.